Ross Dellenger. Are we overreacting? Have you heard what Ross Dellenger teased this morning? By the way, thank you to Immaculate, the Hawkeye, for letting the world know that Ross Dellenger teased. At least it was a tease. At Wolf Sports. At Wolf Sports on X account. At Wolf_sports. Did a space today, this morning. We provide a link in the description box. I want you to listen to it after the show, or you go ahead, listen to it now and then pop back in. It's at the 21-minute, 19-second mark. Or go back to 21 minutes. We're going to talk about it. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything, even teases, everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends. If you want to donate, support this college football's rebel outpost with a donation, hit the $ where you make a comment, and I'll get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody, and I mean everybody, and I mean everybody. All of you PATC geniuses. I welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend. With the comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. And this is going to be a phone call driven show. I'm only going to go through a couple stories. One, I'm going to go through this reporting on UNLV that everyone's been talking about. I've got so many DMs. Great, talk about it. Talk about the Rebels. Great. Okay, we're going to talk about it. We are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it for a little bit at the beginning of our monologue. Something about UNLV possibly, maybe being a candidate again. They should have been a candidate from the very beginning. A candidate again to become a Pac-12 member. We are going to start off the monologue with that, and then we're going to get into Mr. Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellenger's comments of this morning. Again, I do not have permission. I'm not going to put the audio on and what Ross Dellenger said, but I do provide a link in the description box, and you can go listen to it. I've written some notes down, and then we're going to do a whole lot of speculating, and then I'm going to let you all call in and let me know what you're thinking. The Great Compromise. We've talked about it months ago. It was reported on that possibly, maybe, to settle the scores with everybody in the ACC, the chaotic ACC, to settle everything. Maybe there can be a great compromise, and one of those big compromises would be a change in the ending of the grant of rights, the ending date. It was reported on. It's been out there in public. But suddenly Ross Dellenger says the word could 2 different times in about 5 seconds. I'm not going to be able to do it justice. I'm going to read it by verbatim. We're going to get there. I'm not going to do it justice. You're going to have to listen to it. But it's we know that the talks have been going on. We absolutely know that North Carolina has been rattling their saber. We know this. We know the talk about private equity. You know, a lot of you have said over the months, Ryan Thomas, Mr. BYU man, said, look, you know, it's not logical for ESPN to even redo this deal because they really want the SEC. ESPN really wants North Carolina. A lot of you have been on that side. The other side is, well, you know, again, it's ESPN, ACC. They do not agree. They do not agree with Florida State and Clemson in the courts. They don't agree. They like what they got. ESPN is making money. They're making money on the ACC deal. Why would they want to give that all away? Keep going with the deal. And a lot of you are saying, well, there isn't a way out for ESPN. They're either going to have to, whatever. We've been down all those rabbit holes. All of them. Multiple times. And we've talked about the Great Compromise. In fact, let me just put this out there. If the Great Compromise happens, if it actually happens, And we're going to talk about what that would entail. I'm going to take the big L here at Peek Around the Corner because I cannot believe they're going to be able to get this done. Remember, I'm the one that's been saying, there's going to be a kumbaya moment. Everyone's going to be saying, yay, look at this. We got a few more dollars out of this new renewal by ESPN. But it might be a whole lot more than that. At least Ross Dellenger is teasing it. And by the way, the last time, when Ross Dellenger had that interview with John Kurtz, and he said about 3 different things that were kind of explosive in that great interview that John Kurtz did. By the way, Ross Dellenger was accurate in everything he said in that interview. I know he walked back a part of it, but even that part that he walked back, what he said, well, I was just speculating, he was accurate. So now he's teasing something here, and we are going to get into it. And if part of the great compromise, if it happens, and the grant of rights goes from 2036 to 2031 to match up with the end GOR of the Big 12, which would match up with the end of the current media deal of the Big 10, 231. Victory for Florida State. Victory for Clemson. Victory for North Carolina. The issue is other entities have to have some form of victory, or this great compromise cannot happen. So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it all. Ross Dellenger, holy smokes. Holy smokes. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the great compromise actually happen? First of all, if it does, the options explode everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I mean, we're talking, if they actually get a great compromise done, then the ACC can have all those options that the Big 12 has right now in regards to private equity. If they want to bring that in, if they don't want to bring that in, they have options. The GOR would end in 2031, a possible new media deal. Or they can start having first-party talks, North Carolina with the SEC, with the Big 10 in 27 or 28. Same with Florida State, same with Clemson. And by the way, if the GOR end of date changes, that means there could be a complete unraveling of the ACC as soon as 28 and 29, which is exactly what Florida State and Clemson needed. It's actually what they wanted and needed. And then, Dellenger talks about a lot of stuff before that, and then a little bit after that. And we're going to cover it all here at Peek Around the Corner. This is going to be a phone call driven show. I want you guys to let me know what you are thinking. You guys and gals out there in the PATC family. The way Ross Dellenger, what does ESPN get for short in the GOR? Well, Ryan Thomas, I've already said your name in the monologue. They get what you have been saying. They get what they want sooner. North Carolina. I don't know, man. Ryan Thomas, I do not know. But let's get it. We're going to get into it. But Ross Dellenger teased it, man. And the way he teased it, he said, Well, you're going to have to listen to it. I'm going to try to read it verbatim. I took notes on it. I took about 7 note cards of notes on it. The Azon, the Kid, Rock Chalk is in the house. Gerald Jones, the Walking Geek. Jim Reese, Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina, still Austin. Caleb Ramirez, David Capusta, CFB Plus, holy smokes. Also, UNLV is locked in. Stephen McNeely is in the house. Healing, Florida, there ain't no Pata like a PATC Pata. Thanks for coming on in. Stephen Vitt is in the house. Jerry, I love PATC. I love you, Jerry. I love you. And plus, you have my father's name, Jerry. Thanks for coming on in. Muggy Wow, we are live. The only way I see ESPN shortening the GOR if it gets a discount for it. So ACC schools get less money. I don't know about that. Kerrigo Nose is in the house. Possible. Larry Andrick is here. S. Farmer. Hey from South Carolina. Larry, the GM, Mr. Longhorn, Mr. Pokes, MBM, Tumasta, Vox Quindaro, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, Flugarians. Gorb, I actually made it on time. So did I. Well, I'm never early and I'm never late because we hardly ever officially schedule these live shows. Thank you, Gorb, for coming on in. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your generosity once again. Thank you, Gorb. Thank you so very much. Smoldering Calderon of action. Lee Go Gators driving through enemy territory. Holy smokes. Jose is in the house. Now I've gotten at least a dozen. I'm probably more, but at least a dozen DMs on this big mountain show saying that ESPN is moving UNC to the SEC. Eventually, North Carolina is going to have options. After this great compromise is done, then in a few years or in 2036 or all these crazy scenarios that North Carolina has been leaking, they've been rattling their saber. I have not listened to Big Mountain Man. I've never listened to the show. They're probably, so I'm just saying this so people can sort of get up where I'm coming from. So no more DMs on it. They're probably really good guys. They probably have a really good show. And maybe they have some great information. I'm unable to watch it because of their connection with genetics. I mean, they believe that genetics is actually real. It's a real source. And therefore, I do not have the time to watch any programs that think that genetics is actually. So I just cannot watch it. But again, they might have something. They might have some great information from another source. And I know, look, I'm just not going to go. It's a YouTube channel that I'm unable to watch because they actually think genetics is real. And therefore, it's very difficult for me to lend them any credibility. But they might be onto something or they're on something. I do not know. Good luck to those gentlemen in that show. I've never watched it and I cannot see myself watching it. But if you guys want to go ahead and watch it, go for it. Maybe they have something. Mike Smith, I'm feeling backwoods sexy. Interesting. 2031, you say. When does that current Big Ten media contract end? Exact same day. What's up, fam? Christopher Mercado. Again, I have not heard that. I have not heard that at all. I don't know what that, I have not heard. All that we have reported is, by the way, for those who are listening in their car, Still Austin puts a comment, Greg, the Big Mountain Podcast dropped a new show today saying that Big Ten sources told them ESPN is working on a move of North Carolina State to the SEC at the time of the ACC ESPN contract renewal. Have you heard the same? No, none of that. And I don't know what you mean by, I don't know what they mean by at the time of contract renewal. Does that mean here in a couple months, or does that mean, I don't know what that means. All that we have reported was, of all the options that North Carolina is rattling their saber, I mean, North Carolina is talking a lot of stuff right now. One of their options would be to go to the Board of Governors. And if they did that, they would go with North Carolina State in tow together. That's all that we have been told. That we were told that on Friday. North Carolina is using all of their power, all of their intangibles to make sure that the status quo doesn't go until 2036. And they're throwing out some doozies out there. And maybe somebody has told these gentlemen that one. I have no reason. I have not heard of that at all. A2 My is in the house. I have not heard that. 6 years is easier than 11 years. All good. 720 is in the house. Ron is here. King Spleen, Grant Creech, Expedition Greg, Immaculate. Thank you, Immaculate, for that information. Immaculate, for those driving in the car, in fact, Genetics was trying to push back on X against some of what they said. Just saying, I don't think this came from Genetics. I'm sure it probably didn't, but February 1st, Still Austin, Expedition Greg, not buying it. Matt O is in the house. Michael Uten, Bracket Cat, Kyle Visser, Ron. Okay, let's get into it. I appreciate you all joining us here early on Wednesday. We usually do our live Wednesday show earlier in the day because Wednesday nights I got a whole bunch of things going on. First of all, let's go into the UNLV reporting. Let's talk about UNLV. UNLV and Nevada floated as potential additions to round out the Pac-12 Nevada Sports Net by Chris Murray. While the Mountain West has rebuilt itself with additions of UTEP and Hawaii as full members, UC Davis and Grand Canyon as non-football members, and Northern Illinois as a football-only affiliate, the Pac-12 has mostly laid in the weeds after poaching 5 programs from the rival Mountain West last fall. The Pac-12 has added San Diego State, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and Utah State from the Mountain West, while plucking Gonzaga from the West Coast Conference. While the Mountain West has been busy adding schools in recent months, the Pac-12 hasn't made a move since adding the Bulldogs on October 1st. All of these changes will happen prior to the 26-27 season. Pac-12 insider John Kazano said the league's athletic directors met Monday for the first of 2 days of meetings in San Ramon, California to discuss the league's future. Canzano noted an update on expansion efforts will be included in this week's meetings, as setting the league's football membership is a high priority. The Pac-12 is just 7 football schools, with holdovers Oregon State, Washington State, plus the 5 Mountain West additions. Gonzaga's does not sponsor football. The FBS minimum is 8 football members, meaning the Pac-12 must add at least 1 more for the 26th season. But Canzano said getting to 9 football leagues is the league's ideal number. Now that makes logical sense. That would allow for an 8-game league schedule. The Mountain West currently has 9 football members. Canzano floated UNLV and Nevada as possible additions to round out the Pac-12. Multiple athletic directors have told me they believe 9 is the ideal number of football schools, Canzano wrote. That could mean 2 expansion additions, not 1, 2. UNLV and Nevada together, Tulane and Memphis. Anything is possible at the right numbers. Having at least 9 schools makes football scheduling easier and avoids having to find and buy additional non-conference games. But the Pac-12, to this point, has acted methodically and calculated with membership decisions. I would not agree on that. I do not know how anybody can report, in my opinion, that the Pac-12 has acted methodically and calculated with membership decisions. They've acted, now they've been in a pause, but their decision on how they did it to only take the top 4 of the Mountain West Conference, I think that was a very poorly laid out decision by the Pac-12. Just my opinion. The league still has time. It's being strategic, Canzano says. Also, there's pending lawsuit with the Mountain West that should never have come about that may shade the decision. That lawsuit against the Mountain West could be critical. Nevada and UNLV were among the 6 full-time members who signed a memorandum of understanding in October to remain in the Mountain West. How much would it take for Nevada and UNLV to get out of that memorandum of understanding? That's the question. The others include Air Force, San Jose State, New Mexico, Wyoming. Hawaii also signed the document as a football-only member, but has since been added as a full member to the Mountain West Conference. Part of the memorandum of understanding included the remaining schools signing over a grant of media rights to the Mountain West through June 20, 2032, meaning the broadcast rights to their home games would be owned by the Mountain West. That essentially locks those 7 schools into the Mountain West as long as the conference can fulfill its terms of the contract, which included a minimum of $61 million in exit fees redistributed to the remaining schools, with UNLV and Air Force getting 24.5% of that money, and Nevada. New Mexico, San Jose State, and Wyoming earning 11.5% each. Despite this seemingly strong contract, this is the PATC money shot number 1 of this article. UNLV has been rumored as a potential add to the Pac-12 in recent weeks as the Mountain West battles a lawsuit from the Pac-12 over poaching penalties. It owes the Mountain West $55 million, and a lawsuit from multiple departing Mountain West schools over its exit fees, roughly $18 million per school. If the Mountain West is unable to cash in enough of that money to redistribute the promised $61 million, it could lead to a breach of contract that allows UNLV out of the Mountain West, cloak and dagger, if it chooses that path. UNLV has already turned down an offer from the Pac-12 to remain in the Mountain West. And although the Rebels know now what the Mountain West looks like post-rebuild. So the Pac-12 shunned the UNLV at the beginning. UNLV turned down the Pac-12 after a fact. And now, look, is it going to come together? Is it going to come together now? UNLV also could theoretically leave the Mountain West and not retain its media rights like SMU for the next 6 years, which is not ideal. Not exactly like SMU. SMU's got their media rights, but the ACC is taking all the money and redistributing to the other conference members. But it is like SMU in that UNLV would not be taking any media money from the Pac-12 media rights because the Mountain West Conference would own those media rights. Which is not ideal but a potential out. Nevada being added to the list of Pac-12 targets per Canzano is a new development, as the Wolfpack was not high in the pecking order when the Pac-12 first raided the Mountain West. I do not understand here at PATC to this Nevada talk at all. I don't know what this is about. I don't know if this is being leaked for some lever. I don't know what this is. I cannot fathom the Pac-12 bringing on Nevada. Cannot fathom it. No way is that going to, in my humble opinion, I do not see that happening. Back to the article. It seems unlikely Nevada would hold much appeal several months later, given its struggles in competitiveness, low budget, below average facilities, lack of media market appeal. The belief that UNLV and Nevada were somehow tied together politically was misreported. We've been through that. Most of those regions represent Clark County. It would be unlikely to hold UNLV back if it wanted to join the Pac-12 without Nevada. The Rebels and the Wolfpack have been in different conferences more often than the same for most of their shared history. Canzano also tossed out Tulane in Memphis from the American Athletic Conference as potential expansion members. But those schools didn't bite on the Pac-12's first attempt to woo them. Whether the Pac-12 officially offered those schools membership last fall is uncertain. But the Pac-12's media rights deal would probably need to exceed $10 million per year to even get interest from Tulane and Memphis. The Sun Belt's Texas State is another potential Pac-12 expansion candidate. The Bobcats reportedly received interest from the Mountain West, but did not make the move to the league, and that is true. I've got confirmation as that as well. But the Bobcats turned that offer down. There is no natural Pac-12 travel partner for Texas State if the Pac-12 sets its target at 9 football schools. The Mountain West and the Pac-12 are on the verge of television contract negotiations, if those hasn't happened yet, with both lacking a media right deal for 26 and 27 season. The Pac-12 seems better prepared for a more lucrative contract than the Mountain West. San Jose State John Wilner, the Pac-12 potential deal is about between $9 million and $10 million annually. Now that is a media contract. The conference payouts would be a few millions above that, which would be higher than any other G5, G6 conference. The Mountain West Memorandum of Understanding agreed to maintain the current media rights revenue distribution of no less than the current $3.6 million per year per school, saying if the television contract fell short of that figure, it would utilize a combination of revenue sources to maintain these distributions. And then finally in the article, could UNLV be persuaded to rethink its decision to stay in the Mountain West if the Pac-12 media rights deal dwarfs that of the Mountain West? And could Nevada be dragged along with the Rebels to the Pac-12? The latter certainly seems unlikely, but until the Pac-12 gets to the minimum football membership of 8 to be an FBS conference, the Wolfpack fans can at least dream. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think, again, the reason why I haven't reported anything to you guys about the Pac-12 in months, honestly, there's been nothing to report. There hasn't been. And I've been asking the questions, and I've gotten nothing back. It's like, we don't believe they know what they're going to do next. They're still evaluating. They're still trying to get that valuation of their current members. They're still trying to get their current members, the members that are going to come on board in 2026, to see what they believe and what they think. And that's the answer I get back. I am not hearing Texas State. I am not hearing anything. I'm not. I'm going to keep poking and prodding. This was John Canzano's article, or not his article, but it was about his article. He's reporting. I don't know where Canzano's getting the information. I cannot foresee Nevada. No way. I'm sorry. You can go and dream, but there's no way. There's no way. There is, when we did the Holy Smokes Theater and we had the 6 highest valued programs of the Mountain West on the stage, those 6 highest ones, Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State, Air Force, and UNLV. When we did all that poking and prodding, when we got all that information, Nevada was at the bottom. They were at the bottom when it came to valuation. I cannot see it even a possibility. So I don't know if that's being leaked to put pressure on UNLV. Anyways, that's all I got for UNLV. People have been wanting me to talk about the Pac-12 forever, so I use this first part of the monologue to discuss it. But I really have no information worthwhile to forward to you here at Peek Around the Corner when it comes to the Pac-12 situation. I wish I did, but I don't. But I'm going to keep going at it. Okay. Yes, it was. Immaculate private equity. I think what Immaculate is talking about there is when they're talking about the Mountain West Conference. Trying to make sure they're at a certain... The Mountain West Conference is probably the most upfront, most interested of the G6 conferences when it comes to private equity. Okay, now let's talk about Ross Dellenger. I took notes. Again, I would suggest, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. I would suggest highly that you go to the description box below the video and hit the link that I provided at wolf_sports and go listen to what Ross Dellenger said. He's at the beginning of this space on X, and at the 21-minute mark, if you want to listen to what we're emphasizing on this possible ending of shortening up the GOR, the ACC grant of rights, shortening up the media deal, go listen to Ross Dellenger. We're going to talk about it right now. I took some notes. Ross Dellenger starts off by he's answering questions, And he says, yes, this offseason basically going to be as busy as any other offseason. It's going to be crazy. And we've been saying that for months. 2025 is going to be crazy. He talks about how everyone is waiting on the House versus NCAA settlement when it becomes official, implementation. He was asked questions about Bill Belichick, the transition. And Ross Dellenger said, Bill Belichick he's been out there. He's been recruiting. They've been busy in the portal. Ross Dellenger said something to the effect, I believe it was Bill Belichick's call. That's something that North Carolina was required to do when it went from artificial turf to real grass. Ross Dellenger went on to say, this new revenue share era that we're in, where you got a salary cap, at least right now, or at least we think it's going to happen for at least a while until maybe all that gets shot down by the courts. Ross Dellenger goes on to say these power conference schools, especially the power conference schools from the 4 power conferences, they're turning their athletic departments into basically NFL front offices. They're going to be hiring people. They're going to be negotiating and signing contracts with their student athletes. Ross Dellenger basically says, I do not know. This is Ross Dellenger's speculation. He says, I do not know if Bill Belichick would have been interested in the North Carolina job if it wasn't for the revenue share era that we are entering. He was asked about, from Wolf Sports, again, the link is provided in the description box. Ross Dellenger was asked about Indiana and Arizona State. Do you think they will sustain their success? Ross Dellenger went on to say, Kirk Cignetti, he brought a lot of guys from JMU, James Madison. A lot of success. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then the gentleman from Wolf Sports says, I graduated. I'm from Indiana. Boy, there's a different energy there and everything. And then they went on to talk about Arizona State. And Ross Dellenger said, yeah, Dillingham, he could be the next great thing. He said something like that. And he also said, which was interesting, and I've heard this before from Minnesota propagandists like me, but this did not come from me. Ross Dellenger went on to say this NIL, the commercial endorsements are still going to exist. Third-party NIL, they're going to have to go through this clearinghouse. And now with this new era that we're going into, metro areas could be very beneficial to these programs. He talked about Columbus. He talked about Miami. He talked about Austin. He talked about Los Angeles. And of course, he talked about Arizona State being in a big metropolitan area where these big corporations are starting to get more and more involved. And more money is coming. And I've also heard that same thing, and it might be easier to get through the clearinghouse. And of course, Minnesota being in Minneapolis, we'll see what happens there. But I've heard that same talk over and over and over again. So Arizona State, you might have to look at Arizona State a little bit differently. A sleeping giant. They said they called them a sleeping giant in this Ross Dellenger article. Pretty interesting. Now, the next question was asked from, again, wolf_sports. Link is provided in the description box. Is the Super League concept, is that real? Ross Dellenger says, well, it depends on who you ask. It depends on who you ask and what team, what program they're working for, what conference they are working for. He did say there are people in the industry, credible people in the industry, that they believe it will happen in some form, some concept. But it ain't going to happen it's not going to happen like 2 years from now, 3 years from now. But he does believe there are people who truly believe it's going to happen in some form. And Ross Dellenger went through the differences of the two Super League concepts that are out there. Ross Dellenger said, now we get to what this live show is all about. Ross Dellenger says, the next significant realignment. Now, I'm consider this paraphrasing. Some of this, I got the exact words. Some of it, So again, please listen to the interview yourself. The link is provided. Ross Dellenger says the next significant realignment is in 2031. 2 of the 4 power conferences deals come up in 2031. The Big 12 and the Big 10. We know that, right? Then he says the SEC comes up 3 years later, 2034. We know that, right? Then Ross Dellenger says the following. ACC comes up 5 years later. 5 years later from 2031, when he's comparing it to when the Big 10 and the Big 12 ends. So that's 2036, that we all know. Ross Dellenger says ACC comes up 5 years later, but that could change. You could actually see 3 of the 4 power conferences deals end up in 2031. And again, Immaculate, thank you for telling the world that this happened. Thank you, Immaculate. And I did say thank you at the beginning of the show to you, if you weren't watching, listening. Now, I might have not gotten every single word correct, so I'm going to say it again. He's saying, the Big 12 and the Big 10 ends in 2000. And Immaculate, you correct me. You correct me if I'm portraying this incorrectly, in your opinion, or anybody else. Anybody else who's listened to this, please correct me, or just state your opinion. The phone lines are going to be open. But I'm telling you, listen to it. This is what Ross Dellenger, the ACC comes up 5 years later, but that could change. You could actually see 3 of the 4 power conferences end their media contracts in 2031. Let me finish this off by saying Ross Dellenger goes on and talks about the restructuring of college conferences. or not only the restructuring of college football, it could come in three different ways. One, it's what's going on right now, the start of it, where power conferences are going on their own. They're making their own rules. They're going to go on their own. I think that's what's going to happen. But he also brings up the Project Rudy by Smash Capital, the expanded playoffs. He talks about the college sports football tomorrow, whatever that is. That's actually the one that North Carolina is supporting, or Bubba Cunningham sponsored. College sports tomorrow, something like that. But basically, Ross Dellenger said all of these efforts, all of the efforts that are going on right now by this private equity, this thing it's going to come in somehow, some way, some form. I don't know how. We talk about this all the time, and we're going to continue to talk about it. I just don't have the answers, guys. No way, no how. I don't think anyone does. But this big money that wants to come into this college sports space, and ESPN and Fox doesn't want it to come on in. When we talk about incentives, why would ESPN... Okay, let's get back to the 2031. Ross Dellenger, in my opinion, in the way he said this, it could just happen to say... He didn't say SEC could go to 2031. He said ACC could go to 2001, and we could see 3 power conferences having the same end date. So that would take for the GOR, the grant of rights, to go from 2036 to 2031. There has to be some great compromise, right? In my opinion. Let me know if you think that's wrong. But I think it has to be some... We've heard this before. We've talked about this before. Some of it in public, a whole lot of it in private. I just don't believe they're going to be able to get it done. But maybe they can. Maybe they can, because Ross Dellenger's just said this could. You know what? This smells like an article that's about to be released. This smells like an article. This smells like something. We know we know that North Carolina has been rattling the cages. We know that Florida State and Clemson's, their court cases have gathered more leverage, not less, because of this money that wants to come in, and the Big 12 is looking at it and doing all that work, and ACC is stuck with no options because private equity is not looking at them. This outside money, not in the same way they're looking at the Big 12. So Florida, because 2 schools are suing the ACC, that wasn't part of the landscape on December 22nd, 2023. Now it is. It's big time. So actually, Florida State and Clemson's being in the muckety-muck, investing already millions of dollars in their lawyers, being in the muckety-muck with the ACC and keeping the ACC, not keeping the ACC, not being able to keep up with the Big 12 is a massive leverage point. And then you've got North Carolina. North Carolina, who was against expansion of the ACC. North Carolina, who was against the suing of Florida State and Clemson. North Carolina did not want to bring on Stanford and California and SMU. North Carolina, who has talked about in private about reconstructing this possible crazy scenario of dissolution. I mean, North Carolina is... We've talked about it on if you missed yesterday's live show. Lee Roberts, the chancellor, went into the lion's den, went into the enemy's camp, and had a meeting, had a speech to the faculty council, and they jeered him. They booed him because he's telling them, look, we've got to spend more and more and more money in football. This is the real world. This is the real world. And we're going to do it, damn it. That's basically what he's telling them, and he's getting booed. The way the ACC is constructed right now is not doable for North Carolina. It's not. And it's not doable for Florida State and Clemson. And there's probably going to be a few more ACC schools that are going to be the beneficiaries of what Florida State and Clemson has done over the last year and what North Carolina has been rattling the cages for the last, I don't know how many months. So let's pretend. And then we're going to get your phone calls. Thank you, Ryan Thomas. Private equity cheese is the real threat to college football. As long as there's no private equity meat to go with that cheese, Ryan Thomas, I don't think it's a threat. Thank you, Ryan Thomas, for the super chat. Appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for your generosity, sir. Let's say there's a great... let's just say it happens. Let's just say it happens. How did it happen? Why would everybody agree to this? Why would ESPN agree to this? Why would ESPN be willing, in their perception? Now, other people say, well, ESPN doesn't have a choice. If you think that, then give me a call and let me know. But from where I'm standing, from where I'm sitting, ESPN agreeing to shorten that grant of rights from 5 years, they're going to want something out of this because the ACC is a money train. The ACC makes money for ESPN. That ACC network has done pretty good, although it's losing subscribers just like ESPN, the mothership, just like the SEC network, just like the Big Ten network. It's still doing pretty good. You're shortening this thing up. If you're shortening this thing up, you got to know that there's going to be a lot of talk in 28, 27, 28, 29. And ACC probably, most likely, no doubt about it, they're going to lose their best, biggest, valuable assets. North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson. I would put Virginia right there with North Carolina. I think they're going to be attached. Possibly North Carolina State, possibly Miami. So why would ESPN want to do this? Or do they feel that they need to do this? And okay, and we're pretending here. We're just saying this great compromise. Ross Dellenger, it could be changed from 36 to 31. That's telling me that, that Ross Dellenger just did not say that. I mean, he just did not throw that out. He's heard this as part of the great compromise. It's obvious why Florida State would want to do this. This would be a Seminole victory. This would be a Clemson Tiger victory. This would be a North Carolina Tar Heel victory. It's obvious why they would want to do it. Now, why would Wake Forest, Boston College, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech, the rest of the ACC, Stanford, California, why would enough of them vote for this great compromise? What are they getting out of it? That's the big question mark. You're not going to be able to change from 2036 to 2031 with these other ACC schools getting something. What are they getting? What are they getting? I don't have the answer. It's the question why. It's the reason why I have sat here and think, I don't think this great compromise is going to happen. From what I know, I don't think it's going to happen. But again, Ross Dellenger just teased it. It could happen, he said. That's why we're covering it here. And I'll take the big L if it happens. But what would they get out of it? Maybe they would get, maybe they would bet. Maybe your Wake Forest. We know they're pro-private equity. We know that Wake Forest is pro-private equity in the sense of looking at the option, possibly they're pro-private equity. We know that Duke is most definitely pro-private equity, or at least having the ACC to have the option. Is this great compromise, if it happens, is this about the ACC getting through this situation, and now being able to be a secure conference until at least 2031? And if somebody wants to buy out earlier, they can in 27, 28, 29. Is this about getting private equity on board? And if it gets on board, could that provide some security to the other schools, even if, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm just throwing out possibilities. Why would these other schools come on board for the change of 36 to 31? It can't be enough that North Carolina is promising them, we're going to stay. We're going to stay. Don't worry about it. We're going to, nah. Is ESPN promising them something? If this great compromise works, is ESPN willing to say, you're going to still be a conference, we're going to support you at a certain level? Let me know in your phone calls. We're going to open up the phone lines right now. But again, Ross Dellenger, we provide a link in the description box below the video. Go to the 21-minute mark. Go to the 21-minute mark, about 18 seconds before everything gets real. Listen to Ross Dellenger. Listen to him say, this is Ross Dellenger, the next significant realignment to happen would probably happen around 2031, when the Big 12 and the Big 10 ends their current media agreements. And then he says 3 years later, the SEC ends their agreement. 5 years later, from 2031, ACC ends their, but it could change to 2031. It could, he said, Dellenger said the word could again, it could be where three of the four power conferences end their media agreements in the same year of 2031. He said ACC could be with the Big 10 and the Big 12 and having the same end date of their current media contract. Let me know how you think that could happen. Could is the word of the day. But Ross Dellenger threw that out there. And he did not just throw that out there because he was not asked directly on that. He put it out there, and Wolf Sports, who did a great job of interviewing, did not come up with a follow-up question. But anyways, let me get to your phone calls. Let me know what you're thinking. Phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333.
from?
Rick?
Rick, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thank you. Those dates are really interesting. You really got me to thinking with the private equity end, insofar as if ESPN were working a deal. Well, this is all ESPN's work, don't you think?
Well, now this is just my opinion. Other people are going to say, Greg, ESPN, they don't have any. They're going to have to do this because of what it says in the media rights agreement, which I can't see, which nobody can see because it's redacted, except for the lawyers and the judge. I would think ESPN, if this is going to happen, this great compromise, would be playing a massive part to this. Absolutely.
Okay. On that we agree.
Yes.
So what I'm thinking is that they're, for lack of a better word, negotiating on behalf of the ACC teams in allowing the teams that don't want private equity to get out and allow the remaining teams that do want private equity to stay, and therefore having that wonderful power that you and I have spoken to before, that comes with an entire conference being pro-private equity as opposed to individual teams. So the conference, if you will, the leftovers, I'll call them, are all private equity schools. And they're called the new ACC. And they enter into a monster private equity deal, and life is good. And then the ones that don't want that are shuffled off to the conferences that desire them most, or that they most desire. What do you think of that?
All that is possible, my friend. All that now I would suggest, now every phone call, which is great about this live show, all these phone calls we're going to get, and we're going to be on for a while. If you want to call in and talk about this, every phone call is going to be different, because like CFB Plus just said in the comment section, there's so much to unpack in so many avenues if this goes to a 2031. The private equity thing may not even play a part in any of this great compromise, right? It might not even, yep. It internally, like the ACC schools that agree to this, if they agree to this, they might be thinking, okay, now we have more options, we have more freedom, we can be like-minded schools, the ones that are all pro-private equity, like you just said, whatever. But maybe this is maybe, if ESPN is driving this, and you think they would have to be driving this, I don't think they're driving the bus with private equity in the passenger seat. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Wow. So that would mean that if that's the case, would that not lead to the conclusion that there are SEC teams that are private equity?
I don't know. I don't know where the schools stand. I can guess that the University of Minnesota would be one of the last schools to get on board, but I don't know what, the chatter behind the curtain is, this is what ESPN and Fox don't want that private equity money to come on in. And the schools, the conferences are their proxies. But internally, I do not know what the Buckeyes are thinking, what the Purdue Boilermakers are thinking, what the Iowa Hawkeyes are thinking. I haven't heard anything. Only that Fox and ESPN would rather keep the old guard, would rather build a fence and moat around their highest properties and not have private equity come on in. That's
well, I didn't know that,
heard.
and that says a lot. I wasn't aware of that. That says a whole lot about both ESPN and Fox.
Yeah,
I appreciate that insight, and let's see what some other callers have.
You got it. Appreciate it, Rick. Thank you so very much. Excellent call. Okay, I gotta get.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, can you hold on for a moment? I got myself way behind here.
Yeah.
I apologize, sir. I am way behind. Preston from Greensboro, thank you so much for the super chat. I do apologize. I see you put it up there quite a bit ago, and I've been yammering. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. What would a Wake Forest or Syracuse get out of the deal? Non-dissolution, 6 more years with the current contract versus 0 years. Just a thought. Again, that is the big question I have. Non-dissolution, but can they trust that non-dissolution? Agree? I don't know. Preston from Greensboro, great comment. Great. Thank you so very much. Just a thought you said. It's a very good thought, but I definitely do not have the answers. Thank you for the super chat, Preston from Greensboro. Thank you for your generosity once again, sir. Appreciate it very much. Kerrygold knows it won't hurt my feeling if they tore it all down and started over with conference matchups that make sense, so most games will be competitive. I'm sick of the Big Ten and the SEC at this point. Thank you, Kerrygold knows. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Seminoles. We're going to get opinions from all over the spectrum, my man. All over the spectrum. Thank you, Kerrygold knows, for your generosity once again. Thank you so very much, Kerrygold knows. Thank you for all you've done for this channel. Very much appreciated. Expedition Greg gifted a membership. In fact, I think I might have lost. No, Edward Kennedy. Edward Kennedy was gifted a membership by Expedition Greg. Edward, Mr. Kennedy, when you get an opportunity, please say thank you to Expedition Greg for his generosity. Both of you are knighted cloak and dagger. So Edward Kennedy, when you have an opportunity, please go into the YouTube channel and check out the membership only episodes. I appreciate it. Expedition Greg, thank you once again for all of your support in this channel. In many different ways you support this channel. Thank you, Mr. Buckeye. Expedition Greg. Thank you, Mr. Hawkeye. I do appreciate your patience once again. The floor is absolutely yours.
Oh, all good, Greg. I appreciate getting through it. I think you're going to be pretty busy with this show.
Yeah.
On the call-ins. Yeah, it was pretty wild this morning. I was just sitting here doing my work, and I had a window up, and boom, up pops up Ross Dellenger is talking on his Spaces Live, and you just don't see that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, and then I had no idea who the group was. It turns out this Wolf Sports, just for context, I think they have like a podcast and they do shows, and they're largely like a general sports and gambling group. So I think, just thinking here, I think that they might have paid Ross to come over.
Sure.
Because they're trying to bring a lot more attention to their site for obvious reasons, and that's a pretty good investment, I think. Pay Ross Dellenger to come in and talk, and all of a sudden you're the number of people there just like doubles and triples.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was largely what it was about. Their questioning was kind of like general sports stuff. So when he said this about the ACC, there was just no reaction to it whatsoever. And I'm sitting here just kind of like pounding my head, like, push on this.
Yeah.
So I put out my post just to draw attention to it. Like, Bill, this is pretty serious. We haven't seen, and there's been talk from people like, this might happen, but nothing like this, especially with the timing.
Now, I saw your tweet,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, Immaculate seems he's got something interesting here. I'm gonna go listen to it, and I was listening to it. I was listening to it in the studio, and the little general came on in, and we talked for a second, and then I heard it, and there's a couple things. Now, other people are going to listen to this and say, "What the hell, Immaculate and Greg? You just wasted our Wednesday afternoon." I don't think so. Not to say that this is going to happen, but the way you pick up on how these reporters work, okay?
Yeah.
And Ross Dellenger, when he says something like that, when he says it could, it's like he's heard stuff, man. He's not going to just throw that out. When he had that interview with John Kurtz, everything he said was accurate. Every drop of it. He just could not say it in that. He's got his professionalism, and he's got to have everything in a bow tie and everything. But everything he dropped was accurate. I would not bet against that Ross Dellenger heard something. He's known this. They're working on something, and he dropped it, says it could happen, and he might have an article in the bin ready to come out just in case it does happen. Go ahead, Immaculate.
Yeah, and one has to look at the context of, okay, who is Ross Dellenger and who are his connections with? And they're largely with the SEC, and they're growing with the Big Ten. That's who he's connected with. It's of the sports media people in this realm. Ross Dellenger is pretty much sitting king right now. So I don't necessarily think he would hear this direct from the ACC. So I'm thinking he heard this from somewhere in the SEC land. And that, to me, lends a lot of credence to this. Because if that's where it's coming from, then that would mean that some of these other things that are being talked about might be true, that ESPN is trying, hearing this as time is becoming very constricted for them, trying to figure out what they're going to do here. And so by shortening it to the date that he says, it's actually a little bit after the Big Ten and the Big 12, but it's before the SEC. And I think that's what's important here, is what it would free up for moves to the SEC. But it also kind of hinders the Big Ten and the Big 12. Because if they're coming up to their new deals before that, it lends a little bit of technical difficulties, shall we say.
You're right.
Whereas,
you are correct. The Big Ten is a little bit before,
like a year ahead of it or something.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think it's exact. Yeah. Good, great point.
So that's kind of my thought. This is like, okay, so this is more positioned to help with the move to the SEC and hinder a move to the Big Ten. Specifically talking North Carolina here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my analyzed take on that.
I will say this. We just did a live show saying North Carolina. We've got the word, Immaculate, that North Carolina is going to put their stake in the ground by August 1st. That is their goal. Like, this will not abide. Whatever this current ACC situation, it's not going to. North Carolina is going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
If this whatever, I keep using the word great compromise. Maybe that's the wrong term. Although that's the term.
It's fitting.
That's being used, but maybe I shouldn't use it. Let's just say this happens. I mean, that is they don't need to put the stake in the ground, right? Like, that is That is a North Carolina. Don't you agree? That is a Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina victory in many different ways. To cut that by 5 years, if that would happen, holy smokes, immaculate. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of added value that those three universities are going to be able to get by hook or by crook. They're going to get it somehow, some way, and not be tagged to that GOR all the way to 2036. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, you just opened up a whole nother door with that, because here's the situation. If you cut from 36 to 31, the projected numbers for what it would cost back when Florida State was trying to get out, I think they're somewhere in the $500 million, right?
Yeah.
You take away those 5 years, if that's true, that number comes way down. How much? I don't know, but this is backloaded, so actually more of the value, if we're going 25 to 31 5-year period versus 31 to 36, there's more value in the 31 to 36 because it's backloaded. It's a rising payout. So it's actually, I don't want to say half because I'm not an industry guy, but it could be. Like, you could be talking half the cost of exit before even negotiating.
Yes.
And then when you start talking about the amount of value that comes off the deal by doing that, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that might open up the fact that they might have to sign a new GOR, Greg. You might have to get a signature on a GOR. You can't vote a school to sign a GOR. Can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah, because they could shorten the deal, the media deal, right? Because that's within what everyone agreed on. So I don't think they'll need to get a vote to do that. But do they have to sign a new grant of rights
maybe
for the short one? I don't know. They may not have to. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And, maybe ESPN. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I keep saying that, but I really don't know.
I don't either. It's a big change, though.
And if you, I mean, and then if you look at it, I mean, forget about the large revenue gap created by media money between the Big Ten. Okay, you look at it let's take a look at it from a Florida State perspective. Just to make it simple. I've talked about North Carolina a lot lately. Let's go back to the original, to the OG, to Florida State in this whole drama. Mm-hmm. Look at it from Florida State's perspective. They're sitting here with a big gap of $30 million, $35 million media revenue until 2036. But, they know, and Clemson knows, and North Carolina knows, and Immaculate knows, that number is going to get bigger, not smaller, not stay the same. Unless you do the private equity, which they can't do and because of the situation that the ACC's in. But you're looking at a bigger number starting in 2031. I mean, the Big Ten is going to mount up, and their next media package is going to be ridiculous. Right, Immaculate?
One would think so, especially if it includes like more, an expanded conference postseason and such.
Yeah, it's just because they're making money. The Fox and CBS, whatever. So that number is only going to get wider, and then the SEC 2034, and plus the Big Ten and the SEC doing this scheduling agreement with each other might produce a different contract. They're going to get a boost in pay if that happens. All this stuff going on, distribution, playoff money is different. So now that Florida State is sitting here going, my God. So you're looking at if the grant of rights ends, if this somehow gets done for 2031, as Ross Dellenger teased that it could happen. And he said the word could twice.
Yep.
I mean, that means that first party talks begin in 27, 28. the legal counsel of the Big Ten and SEC, and suddenly, and this is the big one for Florida State. I'm only looking at it right now. There's so many different ways you can look at all this stuff. You can look at it from an Iowa standpoint. You can look at it from an Ohio State standpoint. You can look at it from an NBC standpoint. Right now, I'm just taking this time to look at it from a Florida State standpoint. You look at Florida State, and they've been told, and I have told the Seminole fan base and others, look, Florida State and Clemson getting out just by those two selves, you don't really going to have a home in the Big Ten and SEC. But as Brett McMurphy has reported and everybody else, nobody has challenged the reporting because it's true, that if the implosion of the ACC, if a whole bunch of other schools could get out at a certain date, certain, then Florida State and Clemson are going to be able to reap the benefits of being these two great, powerful football brands. And so if this goes to 2031, this is a big victory for the Seminoles. Huge, massive victory for the Seminoles. Go ahead, Immaculate.
Yeah. First, just on that point, if all you're going to do is pay to get out, if you're trying to get out for like the Big Ten, let's say, just saying, it might be a year or two in advance of when this thing ends, but that's a whole lot more doable to pay for.
Oh yeah.
Than 8 years, 2 versus 8 years, whatever. It's not even close. It's if they've been working on ways to pay for it for 36 exit to get out early, then they would look at this and say, oh, we've already got that and more lined up.
Yeah.
Like, that's no problem. We could do that right now if they had someone who wants them. That's the question. So who knows? We'll see. Last point on that real quick, and then I'm going to get out of here so that some of these people can come in and have their excited calls. North Carolina's talked about doing PE, as you've reported. I would question and say maybe they don't actually want to do it, but they felt that they would have to do it in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
A move to the SEC might mean that they wouldn't have to do it.
Absolutely.
And when you have a brand like that, and say you're ESPN, and you're looking at that, and you're saying, we don't actually want you to sell off that.
Yes. They're using it as leverage, my man. North Carolina.
Yeah, that's the last thought is like,
yeah,
you save a major brand. Like, it's a major brand, North Carolina. I mean, basketball is not quite what it used to be, but look at the SEC. They seem to think it is.
Well,
I don't want to piss off any Big 12 fans here, but you've got to fight now with the SEC in terms of being the basketball conference in this country.
And they want the students. The presidents want North Carolina, so they want the state.
Yep, we'll leave it at that, man. A really interesting time right now. There's a lot going on, so we'll have plenty to talk about.
Appreciate it, Immaculate. Thanks for letting the world know about what was going on this morning. Appreciate it.
Yeah, quite a shock. Didn't expect to see that this morning.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right, talk to you later.
Now, I took it from the Florida State perspective. Look at it from the Big 12 perspective. Look at it from Brett Yormark perspective. I mean,
Call from
CFB Plus.
CFB Plus. Can you hold on for a moment?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I gotten behind once again. Morris Simmons. Morris Simmons, thank you so much for your generosity. Holy smokes. Mr. Seminoles comes in with the 5 gifted memberships. My goodness. Mr. Seminole, thank you for your generosity. Appreciate it so very much. And I lost the people who were gifted a membership. I got Nick Lovett. That's all the names that I got because I've been babbling on for so long. Hold on, see if I can get more names on that. No, I can't. Anyways, the 5 people who were gifted a membership by Morris Simmons, you are all hereby knighted, cloak and dagger. When you get an opportunity, please say thank you to the generous Mr. Simmons. And you all can go to the YouTube channel and watch the early peak Cloak and Dagger episodes, membership episodes only, and have fun. There's going to be a lot more of those membership episodes dropping here pretty soon. Things are getting heated up. Morris Simmons, thank you for your generosity. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Daniel Gorby, when all this is done, can Florida State take credit for starting all this? Go ahead. Go ahead, Daniel Gorby. Take the credit, Mr. Seminole. Yeah, they're going to be able to take some credit. Absolutely. They started all this. And you know what? Even though things are muckety-muck in the courtrooms, this whole private equity situation, all this money on the side of the table that everyone wants to get their hands on, or at least use that as leverage against ESPN, against Fox, against the Big Ten and the SEC. All of that coming to fruition, all of that has made Florida State's position stronger, not weaker, stronger. Clemson's position stronger, not weaker. And then when you got North Carolina rattling the cages, and they have been, believe me, they have been. They have been. Boy, it's maybe this great compromise is going to happen. Or maybe not. But Ross Dellenger said could happen. Could happen. He said it this morning. There's a link provided in the description box below the video. Go to the 20... I lost my notes. Go to the 20... blast it. Oh, go listen to it. How about them apples? Go ahead, CFB Plus. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Now, so the timestamp is around 20 minutes, FYI.
Got it, 20 minutes.
But, so here's a possible angle.
All right.
Obviously this is not definite, but a possible angle is why would ESPN and why would Wake Forest want to agree to this? And a reason could be is that it is the ticket to saving the ACC in terms of its membership as is going into the future. But this is a gamble, and it's a gamble for both parties. And right now, I think they may be doing a little bit of a dance. And the reason why, like if you're a Wake Forest, you would agree to this, is it allows you the opportunity to get a strategic partner to develop relationships. So come 31, you could either negotiate a better TV deal with ESPN with more leverage, or you go with a streaming partner like Amazon or Netflix that pays you a much more competitive rate towards the Big Ten and the SEC. Now, if you're ESPN, the benefit to this is if you don't work with the ACC and you keep it as is, we know that members in the ACC are discontent with this, and then they might go out and get a strategic partner and buy out of that agreement earlier. So if ESPN doesn't budge, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, they may say, to hell with it. They get a strategic partner, and then they're out of the league by 28 or 29. And ESPN's kind of left with a hodgepodge ACC. Because I think ESPN wants to keep the ACC intact because it brings them money. Mm-hmm. They've invested a lot in the ACC network. The conference as a whole is valuable. I think it needs a lot of fixing, and it's a gamble, but it is a potential, or it's a step to potentially fix that. Now, obviously, I think it goes without saying that the risk to this is that teams just leave in 31. Yeah. But if you're ESPN, maybe that's worth the risk because if you shorten it, then is it worth is it worth it for Florida State and Clemson to leave now or to wait till 31? So ESPN can at least guarantee another 6-ish years of those teams in the conference where they can continue to make money. So that's just a potential avenue.
Yeah, that's yes, that is very interesting. Now, have you heard Ross Dellenger? Did you hear it?
I listened to that one section.
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, he definitely said that it is a possibility that the ACC would go to 31. Now, another thought that my immediate thought was, is there a way that kind of what you were saying with the Kumbaya moment and what Ross Dellenger saying to both be true? And the thought is, what if ESPN kind of kicks this option down the road to 31? Which I don't know if that would really work, but ESPN, I guess, has the option in 31 to either extend or decline.
Yeah, I don't know. The Kumbaya in this could both be true, but my when I say Kumbaya moment, I was I was anticipating. A lot of people are anticipating some sort of deal gets done, and it's not like a big, great old event. So if the grant of rights actually gets moved from 2036 to 2031, based upon deals by all these parties, that is not the. I mean, I'm going to take the big L because I did not, because I have been saying I don't think it's possible, but. You know, I would be happy to take the L. Ross Dellenger teased it today. No, it wouldn't be what I was thinking at all, what was going to happen.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I didn't know. Yeah. I guess my thought was the option that they have, I guess, this year for 27, they wouldn't really change much and boot that down the line, but maybe have some language in the deal that would be more open to interpretation for schools to leave, but nothing really changes. That was kind of my thought, but that doesn't sound like that's the case.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, sir?
I think that's it on that front. There's just a lot to unpack and a lot to think through. Yes. And obviously the Pac-12, no one knows what's going on there. So I'm going to let you go and let someone else call in.
Thank you, sir. Call again, my man.
Absolutely. Thank you for the show.
Beautiful call.
From
Edward the Auburn Tiger.
Edward the Auburn Tiger.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
Edward the Auburn Tiger, thanks for calling. Can you hold for a moment?
I sure can, sir.
I do appreciate it. Kerry Gold knows, Super Chat. If the ACC loves Florida State and Clemson so much, let them go and see if they come back. Wow. Mr. Seminole is throwing elbows today. Kerry Gold knows, thank you for the Super Chat. Appreciate it so very much for your generosity. Thank you so very much. We do got some breaking news. Breaking news. Before we get to Edward, the Auburn Tiger. Now, I did have it set up here. Now I lost it. The CAA board, the Coastal Athletic Association, the CAA Board of Directors commits to opt into the House settlement. The Coastal Athletic Association, the CAA Board of Directors and its member institutions have committed to opting into the pending NCAA House settlement by March 1st, 2025. So what that means is they're gonna get themselves involved in the rev share. Of course, they're not gonna go to 20.5 million. Some schools, maybe they've got a deal made where there's a minimum floor that each school is gonna abide to when it comes to revenue share. That's just speculation on my part. Maybe $1 million, whatever that number is, but they're opting in. Now, I cannot sit here and tell you all the CAA schools. I know Townsend is one. And I know Drexel is, and William and Mary. If I sat here and thought about it, I could come up with another school. William and Mary, did I already say that? Townsend, Drexel, maybe Campbell. But anyways, those are some of the CAA schools. They're opting in. Are we going to be seeing more of these FCS or whatever you want to call them conferences, non-FBS, non-G5 schools, basketball schools opting into the South Settlement? Let me know what you're thinking. Edward, the Auburn Tiger, thank you so much for your patience. I do appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, another great show, man. We always appreciate what you do.
Appreciate it, my man.
You have a great program and a wonderful family.
Thank you.
You know, this what's happening is kind of sounding familiar what we've been talking about last summer. You know, ESPN being in the catbird seat. 2002-31 is that date. As you look at things, and based on this article and based on y'all's conversations with ACC, possibly Big 12, Big 10, SEC just down the road, there seems to be, there's a word that you have been talking about for after a couple of years called the stratification line.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a line being drawn around that time period that whoever does not make it beyond that line as part of the team, they're not going to make it. They're not going to survive. And look at, what do we know? We know that Big Ten and SEC is in discussions. I mean, they're talking about having games together, planning a future together.
Advisory group. Yep.
Yes, sir. Based on what you said, ESPN, Fox, SEC, and Big Ten does not want no part of the equity. They want no part of that. Given that, ESPN has been sitting back in the catbird seat, knowing that Florida State, Clemson is wrapped up in courts, hewn down the ACC where they really can't be a part of anything. And you have the Big 12 who's in the negotiations, trying to do everything they can do to be a part of whatever is coming down in the future of the college football. There are amazing things happening right now. And so they're moving the pieces. Like you said, there's no way that the ESPN is going to sign off on losing 5 years of the ACC contract if they're not getting something out of the deal.
Yeah.
And given that the SEC wants North Carolina, wants these schools, I believe they're going to allow these teams to move, as we discussed last summer. Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, possibly Virginia. Can you see that happening?
Can I see what happening?
Can you see 2031 if this is what's going to be going on?
Now this was reported months ago, speculated on that maybe there could be some great compromise, some great agreement in which the GOR would be changed and all that. So this is not the first time it's been talked about, as we said at the beginning of the show. But that Ross Dellenger has said it, teased it again today, is making us talk about it. Because when Ross Dellenger teases it, it means something.
That's right.
So could it happen? Yes, it very well could happen. And yes, Edward, the Auburn Tiger, you've been on our show for a long time, and the SEC wants North Carolina. They want that above anything else. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. We'll see if there is this great compromise, whatever you want to call it, this great unraveling of some. But go ahead, sir.
I do have a question for you.
Yep.
2031, I think you guys said that the Big 12 contract is coming due that year. Is that right?
Big 10?
No, Big 12.
Yes.
And then if you have the ACC coming due, my question is to you, do you see ESPN, if they're allowing North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State and all them to be moved, and they maybe secure the rest of the ACC, do you see ESPN putting a lot of pressure on the Big 12 to do something with the ACC along those lines? Because everybody's not going to make it across that line, Greg.
Well, I mean, you may not have to make it across the stratification line, but to be able to compete at the highest levels, especially when it comes to football, you will probably have to make it across that stratification line. And that's what I meant in months when I talked about USC talking to the Big Ten. It had to do with making sure that they were above the stratification line. So it doesn't mean they're not going to survive as a program or competing, whatever. Yes, they're going to be able to do that. But so I just wanted to clarify that. I think what Yormark wants to do is to create as much leverage as possible when they go into the next media rights agreement. That is why I believe he's talking with private equity to try to get a nice takeoff strip for possible options with big streaming giants and their connections with these private equity groups. So I don't know. I mean, Brett Yormark is looking to continue his great relationship with ESPN and Fox, but also making sure he has a foot outside of that to make sure that ESPN does not have all the leverage on them when they enter into that exclusive rights agreement negotiation. So hopefully that explains some of that.
Yes, sir. Well, it leads me into my last question, and I'll get off and let some other people get on.
Yeah.
So you have ESPN, SEC, you have Fox, CBS, NBC, and the Big Ten. Given everything that's happening, what do you feel like is their end game here? Because, I mean, this can't be just playing games during the season and then being part of a championship that's involving everybody. I mean, do you see a breakaway down the road?
It's not the chalk. It's not the favorite. There was no possibility of a breakaway for 2025 and 26, like other people pounded the table for months and years on. There was no possibility that was going to happen. Is there a possibility that it happens around 2031? Yes, but there is big, massive hurdles for that to happen. The biggest one is political. There are, especially if there is a federal carve-out in attempt to get some sort of stability in college sports. If there's a federal carve-out, you can forget about a breakaway. Even without the federal carve-out, the chances of a complete breakaway by the SEC and the Big Ten, I'm telling you, it's not the chalk. It's not the favorite. Could it happen? Possibly. Yes. But again, you've got 2 senators in each state. You've got 435 congressional people in the House of Congress. They've got communities, they've got investments in these public universities, in their front porches. You've got some major universities that are never going to get into the Big Ten, into the SEC. And they've got a lot of interest backing them. They've got a lot of forces backing them. So that is why I think the chances of a breakaway definitely is less than 50%. No question about it. But go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, you've answered all my questions, and it just seems like there's a lot happening with those meetings. And
Yep.
Because it's hard to see that everybody can survive the way NIL is going. I mean, I don't think the structure can support where football is going. It just seems unattainable. But thank you very much for taking my call, Greg. Keep up the great work.
You got it. Appreciate it.
Call from
I'm sorry. Who is this?
Evil Badger.
Evil Badger. Can I have you on hold for a moment?
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate it. I do apologize. I've been given some DMs on what has been said. Now, I was given a bunch of DMs on the Mountain Man's podcast, the YouTube channel, and what they said this morning. I haven't listened to it. Maybe I will later on. I did say that, I haven't watched them because, and I said they might be very fine gentlemen and they might have something. They might most definitely have something, a good source, good information. Go watch them. Those were my exact words. But again, it's very difficult for me when you have any association with genetics. Now, I have been given some DMs here. There has been some communication on X in regards to this Mountain Man and genetics. Number one, I'm going to repeat what I just said. You might have the goods, great. People should watch your program, go watch it. Go watch it. But when you have genetics as part of your program, you're going to lose a lot of the audience. Eventually, that is going to be a massive hurdle to your show. Genetics is a gentleman who lives in a complete fantasy world. Like complete fantasy world. I was given DMs just a couple days ago that genetics says I got UCLA and USC to the Big Ten correct. It was off his account. Now, I did not answer it. I'm not going to spend any more time on X about this genetics guy. But let me just give you an example, Mountain Man, because I see you watching this program. Or somebody can forward you something. Do you know why genetics was a part of the LA Times article on USC going to the Big Ten? Do you know why genetics was part of the article? Because the man who wrote it asked me, could I have genetics as part of this article because he got everything wrong about USC going to the Big Ten, and he will not admit it. I approved for genetics to be a part of that article. Genetics is completely lost in delusion. He did not have Washington and Oregon. He said they weren't coming in. He said the USC wasn't coming in. He said Colorado would not go to the Pac. The guy knows absolutely nothing. Now, I've gotten some DMs where he's taken personal attacks against me. That's fine. I'm the fat guy from Minnesota. But I'm just telling you, Mountain Man, and do your show however you want to do it. But there have been other YouTube channels that have separated themselves from genetics. There is a reason for that. You might have great sources, and I applaud you. And if it works out, that's great. You might have a great YouTube channel, but I'm telling you, separate yourself from genetics, and you have a chance to get a whole lot of serious people looking at your content. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's not a shot against you guys. But you got to come to grips with something. That guy, that genetics, is absolutely 100% delusional. And he just sent the war chant message boards on a 1.5 year safari hunt that, of course, ended up with nothing. He lied to them. He juiced them. He conned them. This is what he does. He's a con man of over a decade. Of over a decade. And you're being conned. Or you were being conned. Maybe you've woke up. Maybe you have. I don't know. But again, genetics was a part of the Los Angeles Times article on the front page because he got everything wrong. Not because he got anything right. And he still doesn't get anything right because he's not real. He's not real. We at PATC are real. And Mountain Man, you guys are probably real, right? You get in some information, you're wrong, you're right, you take the L, whatever. But genetics is not real. He's not real. He's not real at all. And more everybody has. Now Florida State Seminole fan base, all of them have caught on. In fact, I got DMs, Mountain Man, I can show you. I can show you, Mountain Man, DMs of Florida State Seminole fans coming to me and saying, Greg, you were right. This genetics guy is a complete fraud. If you want me to, I will show. In fact, I'll go one further, Mountain Man. I'll go one further. Genetics shared with me, absolutely shared with me, months ago, his so-called sources. He screenshotted them to me and sent them to my DM. Who would do that? Who would screenshot this? Because he wanted to prove that he was an insider. He showed me screenshots of his so-called sources. You know what I did with that? I gave those screenshots to some people in the industry, and they made sure that those sources knew that this genetics guy was sharing his sources to a person who I have no respect for. That's the guy you are dealing. That's just one of many. One of 1,000 examples. So when I started off this show, Mountain Man, I'm trying to do you guys a favor. You got sources? Cool. Go with it. But I've got like 12 DMs saying, Mountain Man reported this. Cool. That's great. Until he disassociates himself with genetics like everyone else has done, I cannot watch it. That is my personal. But I did tell everybody, go watch it. This Mountain Man might have something. Go watch it. All right. I just saw somebody DM me these interactions. Wow. Basically, that's it. That is it. Evil Badger, you're on the line. The floor is yours.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You got it. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry I went on a rant with you holding. I do apologize, sir.
Okay, I have a couple of things. One, I have a question for you, but I want to start with what I think of what's going to happen with ACC. If they renegotiate the GOR to end in 2031, and FSU wants to try to join the big, Wisconsin will not vote for them because of their Native American nickname.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in the 80s or early 90s, like I said a couple weeks ago, they would not schedule any non-conference Native American nickname universities. But the one question I have for you is, what happens to the schools that left the Mountain West Conference to join the PAC if the PAC doesn't get the 8th team by 2026?
What I got the first part. I'm going to talk about Florida State, but what was that Mountain West Pac-12 thing?
What happens to the team, to the schools that committed to join the PAC in 2026 if the PAC doesn't maintain their conference status by adding another school?
Well, they're gonna be able to add another school. That's just the reality of it. They're gonna be able to add another school. It might drag down their current valuation by a tick or two. If they got to bring in a Sacramento State or something, or UC Davis or whatever they got, but they're going to be able to add another school. They're going to have a media contract. That media contract is going to be better than the Mountain West. It's going to be better than ACC currently. Their conference payouts are probably going to be even a little bit more better because they're going to have less schools. I think they're going to be a little bit more successful overall in basketball. Maybe not. I think the Pac-12 payouts, media payouts, and conference distribution payouts is going to be higher than the Mountain West and the American Athletic Conference, and I think they're going to be fine. They could have been better than fine if they would have done this differently, but they didn't. I think they blew it. I don't think they got all the juice they could have gotten out of the squeeze, but that's just my opinion. I think they're going to be fine. In relation, back to your Florida State question, Florida State and Wisconsin. Again, this is just my opinion, right? And I am an evil Gopher. You're a Badger. So we are not, we probably going to be disagreeing on a lot of things. I would, in my opinion, say that if Florida State came up to a vote in the Big 12, I would predict, just my opinion, that the Osceola, the Seminole, I don't think that would affect Wisconsin's vote, yes or no, because I know it did back in the 80s, but now we are 2025, and the Florida State University, its people, its alumnus, its community, Tallahassee and everything, they have shown, in my opinion, I could be completely wrong, but I think they have shown support, everything, and a relationship, a partnership with the Seminole Nation that is deep, and it's not going anywhere. And I think the Seminole Nation have given their full support to the Florida State University, and I think Wisconsin would abide by that relationship and be okay with that. Now, Florida State might have some other issues. Their vote up for the Big Ten presidents would probably have some other issues, but I don't think the Seminole is going to be, I don't think that is going to be an issue here in 2026, 27, 28, 29, whenever it happens. I know you disagree with me. That's cool. That's fine. You may be right. I may be wrong, but that's how I look at it. Go ahead, sir.
Well, Wisconsin might. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, no,
but
I
for
get
sure,
it. You just
no, this is my opinion. But Miami will never get we'll never get Wisconsin's vote to get into the big.
Yeah, well, Miami might have a little bit more problem though. We'll see. Yeah, that's an issue. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I had, Greg.
You got it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for the patience. Thank you Thank you, Evo Badger. And again, I apologize, Evo Badger, for keeping you on the line longer than what was necessary. Longer than what was necessary.
Call from
Rick?
Rick, can you hold on for one moment, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so very much. Kerry Gold knows Florida State as the first Seminole Indian player on the team on scholarship this year. Wow, that is a great moment for the Seminole Nation and that player and the university and the football program. Thank you, Kerry Gold Knowles, for that. I did not know that. I did not know that. Thank you for the information, Mr. Seminole. Thank you for your donation once again. Terry Kane, don't talk about Miami like that. Rick, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. I'll be a quick Rick.
No problem.
I forgot to mention before about are they anticipating unequal revenue sharing on the new ACC contract?
Well, that
And
was
if
my...
so-
Yeah.
And if so, is that a possible negotiation with regard to moving from 36 to 31? In other words, if it's equal revenue sharing, that could be more money for the what I call the left behind.
I get
And
it.
a lot of you get it. I know you get it. Okay, that's all I got. Go ahead. And I'll take the answer off the line.
Got it. Thank you. Great call. It's a great call because Rick is searching for the answer on, speculating on what could be in it for the others, because I don't have the answer. Now, Michael Smith says there's already unequal sharing in the ACC. I think what Rick is saying, unravel that, make it equal revenue sharing, and that might get Boston College and Syracuse and a handful of other schools to say, yes, okay, we'll go for 2036 to 2031.
from
JD.
JD is on the line. The floor is yours. Can you hold on just 1 second, JD?
Yes, sir.
I just want to finish it up, the Rick call. I think that's what Rick is saying, and it's interesting. I do think unequal revenue sharing is probably going to be part of the plan going forward, regardless if there is this great compromise of 2031 or not. But I understand what you're doing, Rick. I get it. I'm not too bright, but I get you're trying to figure out what's in it for the others in the ACC. JD, long time, yes, Tumasta is absolutely correct. Long time Seminole JD is on the line. Did you listen to Ross Dellenger? Did you hear what he said? Did you hear the tease? What do you think, sir?
I did. I've listened to the majority of your show. I have been so crazy busy lately. I catch most of them. I've tried to call in multiple times. And you're a busy guy, man. It's hard to get in.
Yeah, yes, it is.
It's hard.
Yep.
It is hard to get in. But I wanted to answer one question when you were talking about what's in it for Wake Forest. And the basic answer is time. Gives them more time. If they sign off on a deal that if it does reduce the grant of rights to 2031, you can guarantee, 6 more seasons, 5 more seasons, whatever that math is. I mean, I got to think about 35. You understand what I mean? Does 2031, is that the 2031 season or the 2030 season? And then is it the 2030 to 31 year, which is the way I understand it? However it all works out, I don't know. But right now there's so much uncertainty. What if they have the votes to dissolve? What if this doesn't get resolved in the short term and they have the votes to resolve?
Or what if they fear that they have the votes to dissolve? It's not just, it's just not like, it's the fear of this happening because North Carolina has been speaking quietly about all this. But go ahead, sir. JD, you're absolutely right. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is, what does a Wake Forest or a Boston College do if the ACC dissolves? When does that take effect? Does it take effect 2027? Does it take effect immediately? I mean, because we're not just talking about media contracts. you're dissolving an entity in the state of North Carolina. It doesn't matter about your media contract. Does that take? I mean, when does it take effect? And those are the legalities that the lawyers would have to get involved in, and it's a nightmare scenario for athletic directors. I mean, you take the guarantee. It's almost like nobody really believes that this contract, everybody would sit still until 2036. I mean, it would be financially, for the brand programs that are trying to compete at the highest level.
And North Carolina,
yes.
North Carolina, behind the curtain is telling everybody, this ain't gonna keep going on. So, Florida State, your Florida State and Clemson have been in the fight. They've been in the mucky muck. They've been in the courts. They've invested millions of dollars, lawyers. They've taken all the slings and arrows. And now you've got North Carolina coming on in and swinging a big stick lately here. And all that might be an accumulative effort to get it to where we get a great compromise to 2031. Go ahead, sir. Appreciate it.
Now, you've covered a lot of, I was going to call in earlier in the day, but I just couldn't. And you covered a few of the points I was going, and others have covered them as well. The point of FSU and Clemson suing the ACC, it was never the intention that the case would go full term. It was the pressure. I think they really believed they could cause an implosion last year, and it just didn't happen. Well, we're a year later, and if there isn't some type of resolution, an implosion is now a possibility. So you look at ESPN. If they want to keep the ACC, they don't want an implosion. An implosion is bad for their business model, because then now they have a network with no conference. Yes, you could reappropriate it to other places, but there's just, is it worth it to them? There's just so much. So again, they don't want to lose the conference. I think the possibility now, I'm not going off into the Big Mountain thing, but I did watch part of that episode. I was told months and months and months ago, and now there's been enough time that I'm not really like betraying any, trust or anything like that. ESPN was frustrated at FSU for going to the courts, because I was just told there were some assurances that in the long term FSU would be taken care of. But FSU wanted to expedite the process. And then I think the snub just kind of pushed it along. But again, so maybe, I don't know what the time frames, I don't know the things that were talked about behind closed doors. Was it always, hey, we'll take care of you by 2030 or blah, 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 blah? There's all these conversations or all these statements that FSU would make was, we can't wait. We can't wait. So in other words, we need to do this now. We'll be so much further behind. And you kind of watch everything play out in real time, and then you don't necessarily see the big picture, but then now that you've had a chance to step back and look at everything, it's kind of clear what their motives were, what their strategy was. That's why they were loud. But you kind of see everything that's going along. Well, now they're quiet. It's like you've talked about. They've got leverage. They didn't get the leverage as quickly as they wanted, but they got it now.
Yeah, they got it now, yes.
And so none of it happens in the time frame that we necessarily expect, but as long as you get it. I've heard that, from several places that, ESPN has no intention to let FSU go, or at least they don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
If they could get them into the SEC, they would. The SEC may not sign off on that right now. Maybe if the SEC gets North Carolina, then ESPN might be able to convince the SEC to take an FSU and a Clemson, or maybe there's other things that happen. There's still so much to play out, and nothing's predetermined like you talk about. One other thing I do want to say, we talk about the February 1st date is not really a line in the sand. I think it's a very important date, and it could be a legally binding date, but we're never going to get to the point that people take that to court. I think we might be kind of done with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to say, okay, well, the deal wasn't finalized or the option wasn't extended before February 1st, yeah, if the court cases went on another 6 or 7 years, you might win on that. But are we going to really be dealing with that in 5 years? And that, from what I understand, is a brand new lawsuit. I mean, that is a new claim that you have to file. Now you're starting all over again to prove that they breached if something isn't finalized by February 1st, unless they vote to extend. So I think the February 1st date is pressure too, whether it's on the ACC or whether it's on ESPN. But all this is pressure, all this is leverage, and I think we're actually going to get where we need to go. And going back to what I was saying about FSU's motive last year, about why they were loud, you referenced the Brett McMurphy article. That was exactly it. They needed the implosion because then they would have a group of people and they would be ushered in.
Yep.
And anyway, you covered a lot of things, and your callers have covered a lot of things, and there were other things I was going to talk with you about, but these were just a few of the little items that weren't discussed. So this might be one of my shortest phone calls.
Well, I appreciate it, JD, and I think we're going to be hearing a lot from you this off season. At least I hope we're going to be hearing a lot from JD. We got to talk about on the next phone call. We got to talk about Thomas Castellanos and everything that's going on with that football program. But I do appreciate you calling us, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
You got it, buddy. Thank you. Great call by the original Mr. Seminole here at PATC JD. The Evil Badger Ryan Willie gifted 5 memberships. Holy smokes. Bob Husley, Jason Ritchie, Christopher Stanley, Purple Orca 40, Jonathan Radcliffe. You've all been knighted, cloak, and dagger, officially becoming members of the Rebel Outpost College Football YouTube channel. Go check out our members-only episodes, early peak Cloak and Dagger episodes. More are going to be dropping. Thank you, Ryan Willie, Bob, Jason, Christopher, Purple Orca, and Jonathan. When you get an opportunity, please say thank you to Ryan Willie for his generosity. Ryan, thank you. And again, I apologize for keeping you on the line as I ranted. I do apologize for that. That was longer than it needed to happen. Thank you, Evil Badger, once again for your generosity and your generosity throughout the months. I appreciate it. Very kind, sir, Mr. Willie. Thank you so very much. Okay, phone lines are open. Phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. It was nice to hear from JD again. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Call from
Movie Time Blues.
Movie Time Blues is on the line. The floor is yours.
The ACC cannot do anything else if they are not in a Power 4 group. They have to do something to keep themselves going.
Yeah.
If that means getting rid of what they will consider the cancers, the teams that are suing them, if that means they have to make a deal to allow them to leave, maybe at a cost, if that's what they have to do, then they're going to do it.
Okay, but how do they? I get what you're saying. What I think you're saying, Movie Time Blues, is that the others they want their security. They want to make sure that they don't end up as Washington State or Oregon State. Correct?
Right.
Okay, so that is their goal. That is their long-term, medium-term goal. And maybe to secure that goal, they're willing to go from 2036 to 2031. Correct?
Right.
Okay, so but this next point is where I get hung up on that theory. I agree with you. All that seems to would be the driving incentive. But how do they truly secure their membership in a Power 4 conference, in a different ACC, in a different constructed ACC, and an ACC that would still be considered a Power 4, in making sure that they were in that? How truly do they, when they make this deal, if they're making this deal, how do they get the benefit in the back end of this after Florida State is going to Indianapolis or to Birmingham to sign the papers? How do they, what is the process to get to that ultimate security? That's what I don't have the answer for. Do you, Mr. Movie Time Blues?
My speculation is that they still have access to markets within the region. Like the East Coast has a lot of people. Even if the brand programs leave, there's still a lot of people who would watch, if they could do a better job at marketing themselves. Mm-hmm. They still have, they have, the Pitts, they have their Georgia Techs, their Duke, their Virginia Tech, etc. If they could keep those on board, then they could get themselves into an alignment where they could now start to compete against the likes of the Big 12 and see if they could maybe pull in like a West Virginia that would help them down the road.
I see.
Get the rivalries restarted within Virginia Tech and with Pitt. Get that and start to pull in some of the programs from the Big 12 if they can do it. I'm not saying that they'll have the pull, but that may be what they're aiming for.
Yeah. I think all of that makes sense. You would think if they would go into this type of deal, though, they would have some sort of like, I don't know what they could possibly have, but some sort of contract, some sort of security to know that they're willing to go into a deal that would reduce the grant of rights from 2036 to 2031, and in return they get ABC. But man, oh man, I get what you're saying. But
go
ahead.
Maybe keep the money as they would. Maybe keep the amount of money that would be scheduled to receive, but shorten the time frame. That way, they get a kind of bump, like a bump up, but shorten the contract.
Yeah. Good. Yep. Interesting. Movie Time Blues. Anything else, sir?
Now, with the ACC and the Big Ten, one of the rumors that I've heard, just as a rumor, is that the Big Ten is willing to compromise on the conference games, in order to synchronize with the SEC, in order to have more cross conference games.
You're talking about the Big Ten reducing a conference game from 9 to 8 per team?
That's the rumor that I've heard. Now, if that happens, it may be because one of the TV partners are insisting that they do more cross conference games with the SEC in order to get more better TV ratings. Like for example, the NBC game maybe a little more attractive if they could get an SEC team on the schedule.
Yeah, the Big Ten is not going to be reducing conference games. They're not, because first of all, they've got CBS, NBC, Fox. They've got Peacock. They got the Big Ten Network. 9 conference games. They're making a whole lot of loot, and the SEC might go to 9 conference games, but the Big Ten ain't going to go dropping down to 8. Plus, and more importantly, these athletic directors, these presidents want to play each other more often. That's why I don't think we're going to see divisions or pods. I don't think we may ever see pods of 4 or 5 teams in a 20 or 24 conference. I think the scheduling plan that they've got now is going to go forward for many years, because these university presidents, athletic directors want their programs to play each other as often as possible. I think there's a better chance in the years ahead that the Big Ten goes to 10 conference games rather than go down to 8. In fact, Movie Time Blues, we know there are coaches in the Big Ten that have 10 conference games into their contract, just in case the Big Ten goes to 10. The bonuses would change inside these Big Ten coaches' contracts. But go ahead, sir. I'll let you finish up.
All right. Finally, my final point will be, so we're gonna have eventually going to look into the basketball portion of the major conferences, be looked at for after football is done. They're gonna look into basketball. That's the next money grab.
Mm-hmm.
And because everything with the house settlement and what the other labor issues that are going to come down the road, anything that's going to generate any kind of money, even if it's not as plentiful as football, they're going to look into it. I think the NCAA is going to look a lot different once they look into the basketball part.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right, I'll let you go.
You got it. Hey, Movie Time Blues, I appreciate the call. Call again, sir.
Sure.
Great stuff, my man. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Movie
Bye-bye.
Time Blues. A great caller here at Peek Around the Corner. Movie Time Blues, legendary, longtime caller of the show. Appreciate it, Movie Time Blues. Okay, so look. We've been on the air for 2.5 hours. If I need to come on again today, I will. We might have to do a late night show. Who knows? You got to subscribe to the channel, and you've got to get yourself notified when we come on, because we do not follow any schedule. We come on with breaking news. We come on when I have breaking news. We come on when I need a rant. When I come on here when I need to sing. And all you guys hit the mute button as fast as you possibly can. So please subscribe to our channel. Open up those notifications. Smash the like button if you've liked our content today. Ross Dellenger teased a possible, he said, the ACC could change their grant of rights from 36 to 2031. This was reported on months ago, and we covered it months ago. But when Ross Dellenger is teasing this on January 29th, we got to talk about it, because we talk about everything in college football, including your team's backup quarterback and backup left guard, because we love everything in college football. I appreciate you all joining us for this Wednesday, January 29th. Big show. I do appreciate it. I appreciate the donations of Gorb, Ryan Thomas, Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina, and Kerry Gold Nose, Mr. Seminole. Thank you so very much. Expedition Greg. Thank you, Mr. Buck. I appreciate it. Thank you, Seminole Morris Simmons, for your gifted memberships. Wow. Again, I appreciate Ryan Willie for his generosity. The Evil Badger, even after I did not, well, I should have cut off my rant long before that I did. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you all for your support, your viewership, your friendship, and I appreciate you all being sickles of college football. Because if you were not sickles of college football, this YouTube channel would not exist. Again, you got to subscribe to our channel. You got to follow us at Flug Empire on X, because we could come on live at any time. Keep your head on a swivel. This is going to be a crazy off season. No question about it. No question about it. Make sure you go to the description box below the video. Hit that link that I provided on the Ross Dellenger interview this morning. You give it a listen. You let me know later this week, next week, what you think about it. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.